Okay, good morning, everyone. Bruchim Babaim. Breakfast and class today. Love him. Nishmat Yoshua Ben Seidah, sponsored by his son Doran Elias. Breakfast sponsored by Rachel and Richie Hafif in honor of their parents Robbie and Adam Freed. Before Shlema to Eliyahu Shimon Ben Mazal Fortuné. Learning this week dedicated by the Torah Center, Silver Grace and Jack Dayan. Nishmat Jack's mother Vivian Dayan Rachel Bat Miriam, and Refuah Shlema Chana Bat Sima Feiga. Friends, we have this week a very strong Israel influence on our people. We have Yom HaZikaron and we have Yom HaTzmut coming up. So I want to just oh, he's such a good friend. Just call him his friend. Thank you. Thanks. That's very sweet. That's good. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nihye b'dvaro. Chodesh Tov. Okay, I want to talk about, let's go back to basics a little bit. I want to learn a Rashi with you. The first Rashi on Chumash, and as far as I'm concerned, one of the most important Rashis, which when you look at this Rashi on Chumash, you would think it's in the weirdest, strangest place. Why Rashi is taking on this topic where he does is one of the great mysteries of history until we understand how important this topic is. It is the first Rashi on Chumash, and Rashi is trying to figure out why the Torah begins with Maaseh Bereshit. Why is the Torah beginning, ask Rashi, very famously, with creation of the world? Well, why is that strange? Why is that even a question? Why would he want to begin the Torah with that question? And the answer is because, says Rashi, the Torah should begin with the first mitzvah, which doesn't appear for the Jewish people until we get to Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Perfect timing. Here we are in Rosh Chodesh Iyar. Because he says, if you want to figure out why we have a Torah because we have mitzvot. We have mitzvot because the Torah was given to the Jewish people. Therefore, the Torah should begin with the first mitzvah. That's what the word Torah means. Horah. It's teachings of mitzvot. That is the beginning question of Rashi and the first Rashi of Chumash. He's going to give a number of answers to this question. However, the one answer he gives is like he spoke yesterday. Mamash, like the Torah was given yesterday, and Rashi wrote this commentary right away. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemim et haaretz. By the way, as a side point, the rabbis point out this pasuk has one letter mentioned 6 times. One letter in the first pasuk of the Torah is mentioned 6 times. What letter is that? What letter in the first pasuk of the Torah, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim et haaretz, is mentioned 6 times? Bet is not the right answer. Taf is not the right answer. Resh is not the right answer. Do you have any other offers? What did you say? Aleph is the right answer. Aleph is the right. Count them up. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim et haaretz. The letter Aleph appears 6 times. Now the word Aleph also spells Elef. Elef. Elef means 1,000. So Aleph is number 1. Elef is number 1,000. So Aleph and Elef are connected. 1 equals 1,000. So what? Why does the Midrash have to pull this concept out? What do we care? 6 Alephs, 2 bets. Well, I mean, machpatli. So the answer is, my friends, something extremely important, and it's related to what we're going to talk about for a few minutes today. And it is, when Hashem created the world, He began with the end in mind. Sof ma'aseh v'machshvat tchila. Hashem created this world knowing full well that the world would exist for a maximum of 6,000 years. 6,000. That is how Hashem set up the system. That is why this hint of the 6 Aleph, I'm sure there's other Pusukim with 6 Alephs, but that's not where the Torah wants to mention it. The emphasis is put in the first Pasuk, because Hashem created the world, knowing full well that the world would, Olam Hazeh, would exist for a maximum of 6 Aleph, 6 Elef, 6,000 years. And by that point, Mashiach must arrive. So Hashem started the whole enterprise of Maaseh Bereshit, knowing full well that there's a timeline. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and an end. And that 6,000 years is divided up into 3 groupings. What are the 3 groupings of all of creation? 2,000, 2,000, 2,000. That makes up 6,000. Alpayim, Alpayim, Alpayim. The first 2,000 are called Alpayim Shel Tohu Vavohu, complete and utter chaos. Your teenager's room, Erev Shabbat, complete and utter chaos. It's a borrowed term from creation before Maaseh Bereshit. The second 2,000 are called the Alpayim of Torah, because the Torah was given during the second 2,000. But why does it begin then? Why begin at the beginning of the 2,000, the middle 2,000? Because that's when who was born? Who was born at the beginning of the second grouping of 2,000? Not Moshe. Moshe's not going to turn around for a while. Avraham Avinu. Avraham was born in 1948. In Jewish 1948. Jewish 1948. So he begins the Tukufah of the middle 2000. And the Torah was given in what Jewish year? It's the only Jewish year you need to know. 2448. It's the only Jewish year you need to know. You need to know the dates within the year, but that's the only year, my friends, you need to know. 2448. So Abraham is born 1948. We left Egypt and received the Torah 2448. What is the last 2,000 called? The last Alpayim. So the last 2,000 of the 6,000, that's called Alpayim of Mashiach. Of Mashiach, Sechazal. Within those final 2,000 years, Mashiach can arrive at any time. At any time. So that is how creation was set up from the very, very beginning. And that is hinted at by the 6 Alephs, which are divided up into 3 groupings. Anyway, Rashi says, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. He's going to quote Rabbi Yitzchak. Who was Rabbi Yitzchak? Which Rabbi Yitzchak is this? Anybody know? I don't know either. So we're all in very good company. However, what is Rashi's name? Rabbi Shimon Yitzchaki. Yitzchaki. What does that mean, Yitzchaki? That wasn't his last name. Yitzchaki was his father's name. So some say, out of Hakarat HaTov to his father, the first person he quoted in his commentary on Chumash was his father, Rabbi Yitzchak. What a nice way to open up your commentary on Torah with Hakarat HaTov to your father, Rabbi Yitzchak. By the way, during his life, Rashi was not called Rashi. What was he called? Shai. Shlomo Yitzchaki. We know him as Rabbi, but he didn't go by, my name is Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki. So he was known as Shai. Many early documents, his name was Shai. We added the Resh out of Kavod for him, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, and he mentioned his father, the first person he mentions on his commentary on the Torah was his father, Rabbi Yitzchak. So this is Rabbi Yitzchak he's going to go. So he's going to start with a quote from his Abba, from his Tati. Lo hayat tzarich latchil et Torah. Hashem did not need to begin the Torah. Ella, at the beginning of Shemot, Yud Bet Bet 12:2, Me'achodesh hazeh lachem. That's the first mitzvah given to the Jewish people before they even left Mitzrayim. Before they left Mitzrayim, they received a mitzvah to set up the calendar system of Rosh Chodesh. Perfect today, Rosh Chodesh Iyar. He says that's what the Torah should be given. It's a very strange thing to say, right? That means all the stories of the Avot, of the Imaot, All of Bereshit, creation, Adam, Noah, Abraham, Sarah, Yisrael, obsolete. Where would those stories have gone? I don't know. Midrash, Tehillim, somewhere else in the Torah. That, says Rashi, should have been the beginning of the Torah. That's where I should have started. So why, asks Rashi, does the Torah begin with Maaseh Bereshit and then continue with the Avot and Imaot? Shehi mitzvah rishona shel Yisrael. Umatam patach b'Bereshit, asks Rashi, and he gives a number of answers. And the first answer is, of course, he quotes David HaMelech in Tehillim, chapter 1:1:1. Koach Maasav V'Glemo. He wanted to show the Jewish people how great and how powerful he is. Latet lahem nachlat goyim, to give us something that you may think belongs to the other nations. You may think, says Rashi, understandably, but incorrectly, that something belongs to the goyim, says Rashi, first Rashi and Chumash, but actually this thing belongs to us. And what is that? Shim Yomru, and he creates a conversation. It's a very unusual Rashi. Most Rashis on Chumash, and Baruch I've seen all of them a number of times, usually do not take this style. She'im Yomru Umat Olam, if the other nations of the world, of which there are how many? 70, right? Shivim, 70 nations. And they're going to say to Israel, to the Jewish people, Listim Atem. By the way, you can open up the internet. The first news article you're going to read is this Rashi. You Jewish people, you're thieves. Or as we say nowadays, you are colonizers. You are colonizers. Which, by the way, is the dumbest accusation. Better to say we control the media, which I wish we did. The media would actually be pro-Jewish for once, okay? Mostly the Jewish-owned media would be pro-Jewish, which it isn't, okay? But it's such a dumb thing, it colonizes. We are taking back our own land. We are actually recapturing land that was colonized from us. Right, we are recolonizing our own land. So Rashi says, there are going to be nations throughout history who are going to call you thieves. Because you took the land of the 7 nations. What 7 nations are we talking about? Nope. No. There are 7 nations, Canaanite nations, that did reside in the land of Israel before we got there. Now I have to mention that Abraham, Yitzchak, well not Yitzchak, Yitzchak for sure, Yaakov was backwards and forwards, did actually take the land of Israel before these nations even were known as nations. But as a nation, we entered together as a collective in the days of Yeshua. When we entered, there were 7 nations in the land, which is weird, because how many should there have been? What was Abraham Avinu promised for his descendants? Anybody? That we would take the land of 10 nations. We only took the land of 7 nations when we went in with Yehoshua bin Nun. What about those last 3? Well, what are those last 3? Keni, Kenizi, Kadmoni, which transpired and turned into Ammon, Moab, and another one. We didn't get that land because we did the sin of the golden calf. So we lost out on those 3, but Avram was promised. A promise is a promise. So the rabbis say from that, when Mashiach comes, B'ezrat Hashem, the land of Israel is going to incorporate the 7 land areas of these 7 nations. But Mashiach comes, we're going to get an additional 3, which is going to be much, much larger, all the way up to the Euphrates, Lebanon, Syria. We're going to see it all, B'ezrat Hashem, Bekarov. So he says, we were promised the land of the 7 Canaanite nations. And they're going to be like, it's not yours. So what are we going to say? We have a retort, says Rashi, on the first Rashi of Chumash. We are able to say, hey, Who created the world? You have to agree with this. Hashem. Hashem created the world. Who decides who gets what? The creator of the world. He owns the real estate. Hashem owns all real estate from the entire world. How do I know? Because he made the entire world. And he decides who gets what. This, my friends, is perfect for Yom Ha'atzmaut. And we're going to start this today and continue on Thursday, B'ezrat Hashem, and Yom Ha'atzmaut itself, that the land of Israel, our claim to that land, you can have many claims. A haven for anti-Semitism, which it hasn't been a great job of doing. A place of safety, hasn't been so great for us either. So what is our claim? We got bigger guns than them. Our claim, my friends, and it's been this for thousands of years, it's mentioned in the Torah. Rashi mentions it is Hashem decides who gets what land. And Hashem said, it's yours. Why is this Rashi mentioned at the beginning of the Torah? Why over here? You could mention the Rashi when we actually were about to enter into Israel in the days of Moshe and Yoshua, when they both reigned together. And there was a transfer of power at the end of the Torah. That'd be a good place for Rashi to mention this. It must be, and this is conjecture, but it must be that Hashem is referencing this takeover of the land of Israel in that first pasuk. Because Rashi is giving us Peshat in the pasuk. So the pasuk itself, you think it's talking about creation of the world. What it's actually talking about is creation of the land of Israel and the fact that it's ours. You can't see it in the words. That's your short-sightedness. Really, if you were to double-click on those words, says Rashi, you will see exactly what I'm telling you. Hu bara, Hashem created the world. V'natna l'shei yoshev einav, and he gave it to those people who are straight in his eyes. I think over here, Rashi is making a little hint to Yisrael, which has inside it the word Yashar. Yashar El. We are the ones that go straight to God. Yashar El. Yisrael. So he mentions the word Yashar be'enav. I always thought that when I saw this little bit of Rashi. B'ritzono natnad lahem. He, with his own ratzon, decided to give it to them. U'v'ritzono, and the same God that promised to give it to the Jewish people, mehem natno lanu, has given it to us. The same God took it from them, gives it to us. That, my friends, is why we celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut. That is the reason we celebrate our soldiers who protect our land, our holy soldiers who are doing a mitzvah when they protect the land of Israel. That is our land, without any form of argument extra to this. This is it. There is no answer to this. The Muslims, the Christians, maybe the atheists, but we'll leave them out of the picture for right now, because there won't be atheists for long. Mashiach comes, atheism is going to go on the back shelf. That's going to be a big goner, by the way. Okay, one last idea. We know the land of Israel is considered higher up than all other lands. That is why when you go to Israel, you are making aliyah. When you leave Israel, you are making a yerida. When you go to the Torah is always put on a platform that is higher. A person gets an aliyah Torah. Why is it called an aliyah Torah? Well, physically, you are stepping up. There's a physical step up you're making to read from the Torah. But also, my friends, there is also a spiritual aliyah that a person gets by going up to the Torah, making the bracha, and reading the parasha. So the word aliyah that we use so, commonly, isn't just a geographical movement. It's also a spiritual movement as well. You go up when you receive an aliyah. I mentioned this before. Rav Moshe Feinstein says when he grew up, he remembers in the synagogues, people used to fight over getting an aliyah. They wanted it so much, sometimes they would almost come to blows. It's my aliyah, your aliyah, they would fight for it. Maybe that's why they started to auction it off So it became pretty clear who actually bought it, and they wouldn't blame the Chumash, the Gabai, the beadle. Yeah? So they used to buy it instead. But they said you used to get into fights. It's my aliyah, it's my turn, you never give me any. People used to fight over it. He says, nowadays people are very, very giving. No. Aliyah is for you, b'chavod. B'chavod, you take the aliyah, you get it, I'll give it to you. You know what Rav Moshe said? He doesn't know which one's worse. The fighting wasn't good, but everyone handing it out, maybe they don't realize the chashivut of the aliyah a person gets by moving up to get an aliyah to the Torah. If you understood how important, how special it is to receive this bracha, the aliyah to Torah, you would never give it away. You would never give it away. He says that's also, listen, it's a beautiful thing. Wonderful midot, the mitzvah is yours, you know. But maybe you shouldn't be so quick to hand away your aliyot. You shouldn't also fight over it either, especially not at a Bet Knesset. Anyway, so the word aliyah means two things. A geographical movement of elevation, but also a spiritual movement of elevation. So let's look at the Pesukim when it comes to Eretz Yisrael. And over here, we need to figure out why Israel making aliyahs instead of going up. So there are a few opinions on this. One opinion is that the world, as we know, is a globe. In the words of Chazal, it's a ketapuach, it's like an apple. They say the world is like an apple, it's round. If something is round, then it's fairly arbitrary what you put on top, right? Because it's a globe. So you can decide what the top part of the globe is, right? We position it in a way that the North Pole's on top, Antarctica's at the bottom, so it's pretty arbitrary how you do it. As a Jew, the view of the Torah is that it's not arbitrary, it's very predetermined, and the top of the world is Eretz Yisrael. And by the way, that's not just like a nice comment. We know that Israel, right, is actually the gateway between the East and the West. So having Israel on top is not such a crazy thing. The idea of accessing both parts of the world through the land of Israel, which it was and still is to a large degree, makes sense that we put Israel on top. So when we look at a globe, we don't look at a globe the way the Goyim look at a globe. We look at a globe, the land of Israel is boop on top of the globe. Therefore, when a person makes aliyah, it makes sense that they are going up. They are going up. And the Torah makes a reference to this when the spies left Israel with a bad report that we're going to talk about on Thursday. They spoke Lashon Hara about the land of Israel. But before they did that, they left all the fruits. And it says they went down where they went down when they left Israel. That Yeridah was a physical Yeridah as well as a spiritual one, because they were on their way to talk Lashon Hara about the land of Israel, which, by the way, you must not do. If there's one sin that you want to stay with when it comes to Hilchot Lashon Hara, talking Lashon Hara about the land of Israel is considered a terrible, terrible thing. There were Rabbanim, Tanaim, Amoraim in the Gemara who would live in Israel, and they would deliberately go around cleaning the land of Israel from garbage so that people shouldn't say, ugh, Israel's so dirty and full of garbage. The Gemara says that's Lashon Hara. Do not do that. The Rabbanim used to give a shi'ur in Israel, and they would make sure that the shi'ur was in the shade, so that people would not say, ugh, Israel's too hot, I'm schwitzing. You may think, that's a statement of fact. It is hot. And the answer is, I understand. But when it comes to the land of Israel, you've got to talk beautifully. And therefore the Rabbanim would give a shiur in the shade so that people wouldn't talk bad about the land of Israel. Just something we need to remember. And we're going to talk about Lashon Hara about Israel and the connection of our remaining in Israel and not speaking Lashon Hara in order to remain in Israel or to bring Mashiach. We'll talk about that on Thursday. Anyway, back to our topic. So aliyah. So aliyah, according to one opinion, is actually a physical demonstration. We say you're making aliyah because you are physically going up to the top of the globe, because we put Israel at the top of the globe. That's one answer. However, the Maharal says a little differently. He says this is not a physical, geographical, topographic statement of making aliyah. This statement of making aliyah means that when a person goes to Israel, even if they're just visiting, they are making an aliyah for their neshama. Their soul is being uplifted because, he says, Israel is the holiest place in the entire world. And whenever there is kedusha, there is elevation. And therefore, when a person goes to Israel, and just like when a person goes to the Torah, they are making aliyah, the Torah, they're making aliyah because the Torah is kadosh. It's the holiest thing we have. So when you make an aliyah, the Torah, you are elevating your neshama. So too, says the Maharal of Prague, when you make aliyah to Israel, when you go and visit Eretz Yisrael, your neshama is having an aliyah. It is ascending to a better and greater place. That is the power of just having the zchut of visiting the land of Israel. It is higher than all other lands. That is how the Maharsha understands it, as a physical elevation, and the Maharal says that may be true, but ultimately Eretz Yisrael is kadosh, and therefore that is a spiritual elevation. Every time we make an aliyah Torah, every time we visit Eretz Yisrael, we have to keep this in mind, that we're not just visiting a country, going on vacation. There is some part of our neshama that is being elevated just by entering into the area itself. Chodesh Tov, have a wonderful day. We'll pick this up on Thursday, B'ezrat Hashem.